Hi. Hello, everybody. This is Philip Martin, and I can hear my neighbors out here. My neighbors, the windows are open. I can hear my neighbors are doing some sort of interview down there. I don't know exactly what's going on, but anyway, if you hear something down there, some laughing, it's just a happy place we live in. This is the video version of our OnFilm column, and today's probably going to be a pretty short one because what I'm worried about is, everything's been pushed back, and there's still a lot of content out there in the pipeline, I suppose, but at some point it's going to run out. I mean, I was watching American Utopia, which we write about this week. Michael Wood actually has a piece from the Los Angeles Times. He's Tom Wood's son, and he's been, I guess for 20 years. I mean, he's been making, in his own way, as one of the best feature music writers in the country. And he does an interview with David Byrne, and we're running that alongside my review of American Utopia, which I saw last night, and I'm really still kind of, digesting, which is one of the reasons I'm up here this morning doing this rather than downstairs writing the review, or actually writing the review right here, so I don't necessarily have to write it downstairs. It's right there. I just decided to take a break from it. I don't know, it's sort of like, you want to avoid being hyperbolic about things. You don't want to be always saying this is the best or the greatest or the worst or essential, things like that, because most things aren't. Most things are okay or not okay. And when you're writing a review, I think you have to keep that in mind. Most things are okay or not okay. Most things fall into a rather narrow range of mediocre, and it's either mediocre on the okay, I can put up with that end, or mediocre on I'd rather not bother with that. It's not like they're really bad or they're really good. But American Utopia is really good. Now, how good? I think you need some distance on it, because I'm thinking about what I would say if someone woke me up in the middle of the night and said, "What is the greatest concert music ever?" I would probably say "Stop Making Sense," which David Byrne was an integral part of that as a member of the Talking Heads. I mean, but that's a 40-year-old movie now, or 40 years old, and I've seen it several times, and it holds up. And the thing about coming to that movie is when I came in and saw that movie for the first time, I knew every song that they were playing, and I was familiar with everything, and I could, look at it this way. Now, seeing American Utopia last night, I'm thinking about it, and I'm going, this is really good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But is this as good as Stop Making Sense? I don't know. Maybe it is. One thing is, I'm not as familiar with these songs. I've heard David Byrne's recent material, but I haven't listened to it like I used to listen to stuff back then. I'm not as familiar with these songs, though there are some old songs in it. And so part of it is, I'm listening to the song like for the first or second or third time, and I'm trying to, kind of put it all together in my mind. It's not something like I have a template for that I already know how I'm going to react to these things, or waiting for the chorus to come or what. I'm trying to really, in this first song that he does, which is called Here, and I've heard it before. I know I'm familiar sort of with the song, but I've never really thought about it. And, he's talking about regions of the brain, and he's sitting there at a desk, and he's pointing at a brain, and he's doing these wonderful dance moves that are very subtle and very natural looking, as opposed to some of the dances that we associate with David Byrne that he gets into later. But, he's like a professor handing around the brain. And I'm thinking about this. I'm going like, well, I just don't have the context yet. I mean, I really need to let this sit for at least a year or two before I come out and say something like American Utopia is the best concert movie since Stop Taking Sense. Stop Making Sense. But I don't know. But the fact that I'm considering that is sort of interesting. It's and it comes on the heels of me watching the Bruce Springsteen film, Letter to You, which is the companion. It's really more like a video album. It's a companion to his album, and it's really interesting for guys like me who are sitting around here, with guitars and easy reach. I don't have as many as Bruce, but we've got a few here. And this is my recording studio. Basically, it's made for one person. It's made for me to come in here and do what I do, which is sometimes I write in here and I write music in here, and sometimes I'm recording in here, and sometimes I'm doing these video things in here. But watching Letter to You, the Bruce Springsteen, I'm just having a lot of trouble about him. I will talk better someday. But watching Letter to You, which is on Apple TV Plus, and I'm writing about it in Sunday. So if you're wondering why we're not writing about it in this section, well, we're writing about it in Sunday. So there. And the thing about the Springsteen thing is that it is definitely a document for fans. It is, if you don't have like this relationship with Bruce Springsteen that is built up over 45 or 35 or 25 or however many years, it's not going to even make sense to you, I don't think. I mean, it's this old guy who looks like, fit grandpa. I mean, it's sort of like, playing music with his buddies who look like retired tax accountants, except for Steven Van Zandt and Nils Lofgren. They're still doing the, the Silk Pirate thing. But, if you don't know Bruce and you don't care about Bruce, you're definitely not going to care about Letter to You, which is literally a letter to you, the fan. This is the conversation we've been having. I'm acknowledging that you've been a part of this and that you've driven me to actually have this career that you value, these things that you value, you are a part of. It's a very nice, I really enjoyed watching it, but then I've been, on Bruce Springsteen since, I was in high school, which was a minute ago. And, okay. And it's a niche product because it's on Apple TV Plus. You're going to go search it out. It's not something that you're going to, happen upon and go, take a look at this for a few minutes. I don't think. I mean, it's sort of and the songs, the music is really, compared to Springsteen standard, it's okay. There's a couple of okay songs on there. Janie Needs a Shooter, we're familiar with from the mid-'70s. Warren Zevon did that. He's got 3 songs from the mid-'70s. Most of it's new stuff that he wrote, and it's looking back at his career, and it's soaked in mortality, and, there's this acknowledgement that, this isn't going on forever. We've lost 2 members of the E Street Band. And it's a great movie if you were ever in a band or you were ever on a sports team and you miss that sort of, camaraderie and that feeling of unified purpose that you get when you're doing something like that. But, it's still like this insular thing. I mean, Bruce, he appeals to a lot of people, but there are real Bruce fans, and some of those people are really obnoxious, and that's one of the things that I've battled with over the years, is because I will say things like, well, I love Bruce, but this is not the best Bruce, and you know, Bruce has done this before. If you criticize Bruce, some of these Bruce people are not happy with you, and that's okay. I mean, everybody can have their enthusiasms. You can express them anyway. You know, just don't pick my pocket, don't break my leg. I'm fine with you, but at the same time, trying to explain it to a larger cohort. Bruce he's got weird fans, okay? But he's embraced those weird fans, and he's all bringing them in, and so it's sort of like this big group hug. And like I said, it's if you like Springsteen, as I do, you're going to love that. But the difference with American Utopia is I think you could start out watching this not knowing a thing about David Byrne or the Talking Heads. In fact, it might help if you don't know about David Byrne and the Talking Heads, and you hadn't, read Chris Franz's book, which is back over here, and you didn't know that stuff. I think it might be better because you would just be treated to this guy who looks kind of like, what's the comedian he looks like? David, David Steinman? Steinfeld? Not Seinfeld. God, what's this guy's name? Never mind. Cut that part out. I'm talking to the non-existent producer. But anyway, he looks this mild kind of professorial type, and he's got his, silver floppy hair, and he's doing his dance, and he's eventually the musicians join him on stage, and it's pretty amazingly choreographed, and the music is like this rhythmically intricate with like 4, 5, 6 percussionists all going at the same time, these polyrhythmic things. If you know the Talking Heads music, David Byrne's music, you will have a good idea about what it's like, and it becomes this invitation to everyone. And I'm not saying that is what makes it better than the Bruce movie, because the Bruce movie is fine. And it was done in 5. They shot it in 5. It's a making of an album. It's a video album. It's perfect for what it is. But I think I could show my grandma. I don't have a grandma who's alive anymore, but I think if she were alive at 100 or whatever, I could show her this film and she would, appreciate it. That she would feel moved by it. That even if she didn't always understand the words the way he sings them, she didn't really get that sort of, Brazilian, African, Caribbean rhythmic milieu, even if that wasn't what she calls rock and roll, she would like it. That's the way it felt to me. I can't imagine human beings not responding to this. So, my problem is now I've got to go write a review of it, and I've got to kind of put that into some sort of, I've got to stop making sense and start making sense, and kind of try to say something that's interesting and maybe true about this movie I saw, which is more than a movie and less than a movie, because it's a concert film done by Spike Lee. There's lots of things to go off on in here, and I don't know exactly what threads to pull out and what I want to talk about, except I want to convey the fact that it's really good. It's at the top end of the sort of stuff you're going to see this year. I think maybe this and Hamilton are really going to change the way a lot of Americans think about the theater and Broadway and stuff like this. And this was done at the Hudson Theater, which is that on Broadway? Someone tell me. I don't know, but it's a performance, it's a concert, but it is not in that sort of unstructured way that a lot of concerts are, which makes you think they're authentic. You know, it's sort of like if you're going to tell me that the concert is highly choreographed, you know, and that the lighting cues were, you know, and it was going to last exactly this long and all that, I would probably say no. I'd really rather see people just go up and play their instruments and do this. But Byrne has this wonderful idea of eliminating all the clutter, putting the musicians in this on stage, walking around, dancing around with whatever they're playing, and there's nothing else because we talked about that. My wife Karen and I were talking about that just as Byrne started to explain that no, there's no loops or anything like that. He doesn't have any problem with the playback. He doesn't have any problem with that. He just didn't do it in this show. So it's a fascinating thing to watch. It's very different than watching the album get built on the Bruce Springsteen movie. And again, I can see why you would prefer the Bruce Springsteen movie if you're a Bruce Springsteen fan. But you just come to both of them, you know, from some sort of neutral place, and you're not going to. I think that you're naturally going to. American Utopia is going to blow you away, and you might or may not get interested in this, you know, older gentleman playing guitar. I feel like I'm slagging Bruce. I'm not. I wrote a whole thing on it, and it's on Sunday, so you know you can dig that up if you want. You know. Anyway, one of the things I was going to talk about is such a weird year. It's such a weird, strange year. I haven't got any, for your consideration screeners yet. And normally, okay, let me just go. Here's last year, 2019. You guys are going to be jealous, and you're going to be envious, and you're going to think, "Wow!" But that's what I got last year. And now some of these are duplicates. I mean, there's sometimes 2 and 3 copies of a given movie, but that's the last year. That is. Actually, what is that? No, that is last year. That's last year, 2019. This is how many movies they sent me. Okay. Now, compare that to this year, which is no movies. And part of that is because the industry is changing, and we are getting more and more films delivered digitally. Through screener through links, and sometimes they'll have an app like the Bruce movie I watched on the Apple TV sent me an app to download, and I can watch all their stuff in advance. Lucky me, but it's just a way of doing a different way of doing things. But at the same time, it's almost like having these cards in front of you. You can move around if you're thinking about like voting and end of the year stuff. It's handy for me, at least, to have the physical object that I can actually, because it reminds me that it exists. If I have a list, that's better than not having a list, but it's still even better to have a DVD. I suspect that I'm almost out of the DVD era, which is kind of sad, but kind of okay, because it's not really what's on the disc that matters. It is what's on the disc that matters, and the disc doesn't matter. It's just a delivery system. And you can store it on your hard drive. You can store it in the cloud, whatever. I've got a 4 terabyte drive over here, which I'll probably never fill up, but I saw where you can get a 6 terabyte drive now for less than $100. So, it doesn't cost much to store all that, and you can have, a collection in the size of a shoebox or smaller than that. But at the same time, I miss having this stuff. Like this is what Neon sent me last year. This little thing with all their movies in it. The Beach Bum. Not bad, Beach Bum. Really. you know, Apollo 11, you know, and of course Parasite. Parasite's in here somewhere. Parasite, yeah, Parasite. See, and I really, you know, I'm going to miss having these things. Just one of those passing things, you know, nostalgia. Nah, so what? That's what, you know, Bruce was all into nostalgia. And sentimentality, I think, sometimes gets a bad rap because we are all sentimental about some things and in some instances. So, yeah, I'm sentimental about losing my screeners and my DVD collection, which, if you can focus back there, you can't really. But I do have a small collection of actual Criterion things in their cases. Most of the stuff has now long been moved out of its case and stuck in a little, you know, thing like that. I use these little sleeves, you know, put them in there, file them away, never look at them again, unless I have a class or, you know, somebody wants to see it. Anyway. Okay, I guess I have put it off long enough. I need to go downstairs, take my little laptop, go downstairs and start writing about David Byrne's American Utopia, which is going to be our cover story this week. And it's going to be our cover story because the movies in theaters, well, right now we don't really have a great idea about them. We know that there's something called After We Collided, which the reviews I've seen have been really brutal. And then we have a horror movie called The Empty Man. I may know more by Friday. I may have seen one or both of these. We might have, you know, nice things to say about them, but right now it's just sort of like I'm trying to put this section together. I don't really know much about them. So, anyway, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Sorry I hit the desk again. I've been trying to do better. And we're going to do another video thing, I think. I think we're going to start doing a video on books. I may do that later on this afternoon after I get back from my bike ride. Talk to you soon. See ya. Bye-bye, guys.